one of the things that shocked me very hard was when we got our second born child. That child came through in a very painful manner because it was a cesarean operation, but we didn't go home with the child, and I asked myself very, very difficult questions. At a university, I knew there was no God, but in this particular case, the reality of the enormity of the presence of God in our lives hit me very hard.
Beyond statistics and numbers, there are human stories of resilience and hope within the prison system. Today, we focus on Prisons Fellowship Kenya, an organization dedicated to supporting individuals and families impacted by incarceration. Through their programs, The Prisoner's Journey, TPJ, and The Promised Path, PPP, they offer not only a lifeline, but a beacon of hope in the darkness. I am excited to meet Sir George Karimi, the Executive Director and the driving force behind this transformative program. Join us today to hear him sharing his vision, personal stories, and the crucial role this program plays in transforming lives both inside and outside prison walls. My name is Diana Etsabo. Welcome, Sir George.
Thank you, Diana.
I'm excited to hear this story and share it with the world. My question will be, tell us, what is PF Kenya? How are you part of this? What is your why? Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. My name is George Karimi, and I was born a few years ago. And I'm glad to be still here today in 2024, the very early days of this year. And I'm happy to tell my journey with Prison Fellowship Kenya, which we shortened to PF Kenya. And I would like to go a few years into my early days of life and mention that doing compassionate work was something that resonated a lot with my own chemistry and my own spirit being. And I found myself doing a lot of things for the family that many of my siblings would not have felt very comfortable. But I felt a sense of fulfillment when I attended to those chores. And as I would say, now that I understand the story of our creation, I understand it better. I know that God creates us, and as His word says, He knows our end from our beginning. And I can say my wiring, both especially the spiritually, was wired towards compassionate activities for the well-being of others. And in terms of my preparation, I grew up in a community and in a school that enhanced that in my life, because the school I went in my formative days was a church-sponsored school. We began with devotion in the morning. From the day I entered primary 1 up to the time I finished. Those days we used to call it Kenya Primary Certificate of Education. So I grew up in an environment where a lot of Christian values were built into me, and it's something that has turned out, in my view, to be very useful in the life that I believe God has cut out for me. So when I finished my primary school and I went for higher education, I remember going to university in the 70s, and that's where I think every parent should be wary of this. I met grown-up people and my own age mates who come from different social setups, and before one has reached their period of affirming what their beliefs are and what their convictions are, it is so easy to be derailed. And I'm saying that as a person whose deep convictions were derailed because of the historical moment of my time. And I want to be specific and say it was in the early 70s when there was the ideological differences. There was the social, the capitalist side and the communist side. And I remember those days were the days when big names like Ngugi wa Thiong'o, because I was in the literature department, and Ngugi wa Thiong'o was actually my lecturer. People like Michere Mugo and other big names, Okot Pibtek and others. And we were young people uprooted from the village, and here we come and join the big names and the big kahunas who occupied the intellectual center of the world at that time. So many of us, and particularly myself, we were moved to get so deeply involved with Marxism and socialism. And I remember I was very active with the university politics of the day. But I'm happy to say that when I finished my university in the late 70s and I was posted to work in Mombasa, the grim realities of life hit I would say myself very hard, because at the university you are part of a crowd. You can afford to speak your mind, but at the end of the day you are going to the hall, to the dining room to eat a full meal and go to bed. And that's not the case when you start working. You have an employer who expects you to deliver. You have to look for your own food, to look for your own accommodation. So those values of socialism and Marxism got lost. They just fizzled out into the realities of life. Mm-hmm. And not so long after my days of the university, I was able to do a 180 degrees, and I started going to church. And I had already started a family, and one of the things that shocked me very hard was when we got our second born child. That child came through in a very painful manner because it was a cesarean operation. but we didn't go home with a child, and I asked myself very, very difficult questions. At a university, I knew there was no God, but in this particular case, the reality of the enormity of the presence of God in our lives hit me very hard, and I started tracing my roots in a big way in the church, and I was set in a deep soul-searching approach to ask myself, how would I serve this God whom I had even declared was not in existence? And while those thoughts were very dominant in my mind, I went through another very painful experience in the bank, where I was working for the Central Bank of Kenya. The department which I was heading, a huge loss happened, and the burden of proving where the money went was placed on me, and I was given the option that if that money, I either produce the one who stole the money, or produce the money, or suffer the full consequences of that loss. I was not able to give the person who stole the money. I was not able to raise the money because it was a lot. So I just waited for the full consequences. And the full consequences were very painful because I was given immediate transfer. It was on a Friday evening, and I was asked to report from Mombasa, to report for duty the following Monday, failing which I would consider myself without a job. And it was, in addition to all this, it was with a demotion and loss of all benefits that should have accrued to me. And remember, this is the time I have said I'm going back to serve God with absolute devotion. And I asked myself, and I remember I asked him very heavy questions, that when I had rejected him in the years, he never touched my life. But when I have given myself and to know him more and to serve him, even looking for a place where I would serve him, this is the manner in which he was coming through for me. So I landed in Nairobi. That was I'm talking of a period after 20 years. My family we were already three children. My oldest daughter was about to sit for her primary national exam. So it was a very critical moment at the family, and I felt this issue of change of location was coming at a most inappropriate moment. But then where would I take that cry that I had? So I came to Nairobi, but little did I know that it is the cry to serve this God that had reached him, and this was his way of responding. So in the process of settling down in Nairobi, I met a minister of the gospel who was trained in the Assemblies of God Church, and he asked me, he knew what I was going through, and he made it his duty to to be meeting me every evening after office. And he happened to have been in the process of establishing a new station for his work in Mombasa. So here I am coming to Nairobi, and he was on transit, was making plans, elaborate plans to settle in Mombasa. So he took me through the session of introducing me into prison ministry, a ministry I never knew about, never ever thought about. In fact, I was afraid of people who are in prison. I had never gotten in touch with one. But when I started interacting with this brother, this minister, I started meeting those who have come from prison. I started even attending prison meetings, and I would accompany him and others to go and minister to those who are in prison. And within a very short time, I felt a deep connection with serving those who are in prison, because it connected with my sense of compassion for a people who truly many times are helpless. So this is the way prison ministry was birthed in my life. And once I got introduced to this ministry, and I would use the hours, my working hours, or my hours that were maybe lunch hour, or the evenings when I'm not having a meeting with him. I surfed the internet for similar organizations that were involved in prison ministry. And I would like to say at this moment that at that time, that was 1998, I was able to look at every prison ministry that was operating during those years through the internet. And some of them which I felt had international operations, I would write to them and ask them whether it would be possible to work with them. Some of them responded well. But the case in point, which is relevant for now, is when I got to the website of Prison Fellowship International, and I got very attracted that they were talking of a membership of countries. At that time, there were like over 80 countries. So I approached them whether they would be able to work with us. And their response was very positive. They told me, yes, we can work with you, but we are already established in Kenya, and we would like to refer you to the chairman of Prison Fellowship Kenya. And that is the way I was connected with still the same chairman, Justice Emmanuel Okubasu. I was able to get a meeting with him, secure a meeting with him. And when he heard my desire to serve with prison ministry, he welcomed me to join in the position of the executive director. And within the board sat, and they were able to give me a letter of appointment. And they told me there was nothing wrong with serving, even as a part-time volunteer, because he told me it was very common with the other national ministries, even not Kenya alone. So that's how I joined the prison ministry in this country.
That's amazing. Hold that thought. Viewers, as you can hear, redirection does not mean a bad thing. And anytime you're redirected, there is hope and there are helpers on the way. We come back after this short break. Welcome back, Sir George. Now here goes my second question. I want to understand your journey with these people who are cast out of the society. Those who are judged harshly. These are the prisoners. Tell me about this amazing program that you're doing to transform lives, the prisoner's journey.
Thank you, Diana. When I joined as an executive director, that was in 2001, one of the biggest challenges that hit hard is the availability of resources to drive the ministry. And when we sat together as a board of Prison Fellowship Kenya, now when I became a member, we asked ourselves, how can we generate resources? And the answer that was brought on to the board was the prisons as an organization have a lot of land. And an example was given, a big prison like Kamiti has over 1,000 acres. And it is a home to over 3,000 inmates. So we asked ourselves, how can you connect? When we were reading our Economics 101, land and labor are factors of production. All we needed was a third factor of production to make them, that is provision of how do you mobilize the land, how do you mobilize the human resources to make them productive. So we made an effort to look for resources that would make, would combine the idle labor, because prisoners are kept indoors, and then there is so much land there, nobody is making use of it. So we undertook to look for what can make the two of them meet. And we were able to secure funding from Safaricom, close to 2 million, and we were able to put in greenhouses. We were able to put in a banana orchard. We were able to put in over 3,000 eucalyptus trees. And the whole idea was, when the inmates are working, you minister the gospel to them. You also empower them in terms of their agricultural skills. So it worked out very well. And I can be able to showcase the beautiful banana orchard that we had in Kamiti. I can also testify to great work that was done through the support we got from Safaricom, together with Amiran, because of the resources that they produced. But it did not end up very well, because of those days there was not a very well thought out partnership between private sector and the government. But it is an area that even today, I believe there is room for exploration. And I having done the work that I did, I'm convinced if those areas are revisited, it is possible to make Kamiti and other areas of prison fit well within our national food security as a policy.
So let me ask before you continue. So as you're ministering to these people as they're working, you're telling them about God and all these things and teaching them skills. So tell me about the volunteer base, because being an organization and you yourself, you're a volunteer, how are you dealing with the volunteer base on this, as you tell me the other?
Thank you so much, Diana. What we used to do is that we would go to churches And I would like to remember one day that I got an opportunity to speak to St. Andrew's Church, this is what we used to call, I can still be called, the church awareness of the work, the heavy work that is, or the call that actually is in the scriptures. And I would like for those who to know that prison ministry is very well anchored in the scriptures. If you read Matthew 25, from 31 there up to 46, it talks about 6 areas of great need. That is about being thirsty, being naked, being in hospital, being a foreigner, being hungry, and being in prison. And those areas, I would want to tell for the listeners to hear that they are the daily experiences of the marginalized people. And the sad truth is that those 6 areas of great need are there in prison. The people in prison may not always get good food, or even in some countries they don't even get enough food. There is a lot of nakedness in prison. You go to our remand prisons and see it. There is a lot of there are foreign inmates who need people who would visit them. If there are people very unwell, in fact there are chaplains who are in charge of visiting inmates who are in prison. So all these needs are all felt inside prison. So if you have that heart of compassion, the prison provides a very fertile ground for you to exercise your ministry. And for those who are deep in the things of Christianity, the Savior himself is the one who says he was in that area of great need. And at one time, at the end of history, he shall hold us accountable that when he was in need, we either met it or we did not meet it. So that is how so volunteer recruitment was through churches. And I spoke to many churches, I made appeals to various churches, and we have photos that when we are working in those projects, there are volunteers from churches who are working side by side from the inmates.
Okay. Now,
or together with the inmates, sorry. Yes.
Okay. So there's an opportunity for people to volunteer and give themselves just to reach out to this community that is forgotten. Now, tell me about the impact of the prisoner's journey. How did it start? How many were affected? And I want to hear the amazing story about this.
Thank you, Diana. As I had mentioned from your previous question, is that the greatest challenge for prison ministry has been resource mobilization. And the ministry experiences setbacks in terms of picking up and taking off because of lack of resources. And as I mentioned, our approach, which was supposed to address that need, did not go well because for the reason that I gave, that the role of a private partnership with a government institution was not very well defined, so it became a cropper. But in 2015, Prison Fellowship International changed its approach in terms of its relationship with the national ministries who are partners with them. And this one, they designed what they call signature programs. And the major one and the first one was what we call the prisoner's journey. The prisoner's journey is a very well developed tool for evangelism and discipleship. It is even as a trained minister, and those ministers, the chaplains, have spoken very well of the Prisoner's Journey as a program. And in this country, as I said earlier, it was introduced in 2015, but the actual day when it was rolled out was in 2016. We had to invite several churches to give us members for training. And I remember we carried a training mission at International Christian Church on Mombasa Road, ICC. And we had over 100 volunteers from various churches.
Wow.
And the training was carried out. And the entry into prison started with about 15 prisons within 13 prisons within Nairobi area, and we had a target of training 1,500 inmates.
Wow.
That is for the year 2016. It was not easy because first of all, you had to convince Kenya Prison Service, the chaplains department, that this tool would be good for them. So there was a lot of back and forth communication with them. But finally, I want to remember the late Madam Wanini. She was those days she was the regional commander for Nairobi area, and because we had worked together, she was able to give us a letter of introduction to every prison in Nairobi. And that year we were able to train quite a good number. We didn't hit the required target because we were trying to acquire the skills, the appropriate skills to run a new thing. But in the second year, we moved from 13 prisons to 25 prisons, now going beyond Nairobi. And the following year, 2018, we were able to get to over 50 prisons. Then when COVID was hitting us, it was a big challenge because that was around 2020. The COVID struck, and it was a huge setback. But because of the way the Prisoner's Journey training as a package is put together, those years from 2016, 17, 18, and 19, it had become very popular. It was very popular with the chaplains. It was very popular with the inmates. And even though COVID was there, there was a great demand from inside prison. Can you just bring in, even if you are not allowed to enter, can you just send us the materials? Wow. We will, the chaplains have been trained, and they will also train some of the inmates, and the program will run even without our going there. Do you know that is exactly what happened?
Wow.
And I want to mention that Prison Fellowship Kenya, in a meeting that was held sometime just before COVID struck, this Prison Fellowship Kenya was given a trophy for playing a leading role globally among the countries who are members, and the members were running up to 100. So our statistics had gone very high. And today I would like to mention that we have been able to reach to over 90 countries, 90 prisons in this country. We have been able to give over 70,000 Bibles.
Wow.
Because the training requires that after the end of each session, you give the inmate a Bible and a certificate. And those who are serving a longer period would also be taken through discipleship programs that make them become even more established in the faith that we are taking them through. And I would like to take this opportunity before Diana to mention that those of you who could be looking at those who are in prison as thieves and murderers and whatever names that you would want to give them, I would like to tell you, open your mind and know that that young woman or that elderly man or whoever he could be, your uncle, could be your daughter, could be the neighbor. They are our own flesh and blood, our own siblings, our own uncles and sisters. And the challenge is, would you be willing to heed the call that I was in prison, as our Savior reminds in the scripture that I mentioned, Matthew 25, 31 to 46, that you either came to see me in prison or you did not come to see me. And there is a serious judgment for those who fail to do what is required of them. Thank you, Diana.
Amazing, amazing. This is mind-blowing. That Kenya, they are able to reach 90 prisons and they are able to train these people who are cast away. 70,000, that's not a mean number. And because of that, the drive to continue with this program is birthed even more in him. And I'm telling you, if you hear the stories I've heard, you will be blown away. And now, Sir George, I want you to tell me this amazing story of transformation and hope that you told me about this lady who was wrongly incarcerated and was in prisons for 12 years.
Yes.
But this program gave her hope.
Yes.
Tell me just a little bit about that.
Yes, I would like to tell the story of a young lady. I don't know whether I should mention her name.
Okay.
Is okay. This is a lady who narrated her story to me. It's heart-rending when you hear the story. But when she was in Langata Women Prison, she went through our training, and she became a transformed person. And when she finished her sentence, 12 years, and maybe before I say finished, she is a lady who was, the circumstances that led her to prison, the story can be told in another platform, but it is, she was wrongly imprisoned for 12 years, and that speaks about our criminal justice system. But finally, she was able to get her freedom back. And when she finished her sentence, because of our interaction with her, we were able to visit with her in her place. And she had a daughter who was being taken to school by her aunties when she was in prison. But because we had now gotten into relating with her from prison, we felt it would be good to intervene. And when we intervened, we were able to take this young lady to pay for her school fees from 4. And when she finished her college, we've been able to proceed with the young lady to train in catering at NIBS, which is somewhere in Roiro. And she has been in that college now for 2 years. This is the 3rd year. and she is likely, she should be graduating sometime in the course of this year, and she feels her ambition is to open a hotel, something she would never have realized if Prison Fellowship Kenya would not have intervened, and if her mother would not have gone through the program of the prisoner's journey, which we were running in Langata Women Prison, and we are still running when it is there.
Thank you. Thank you for just elaborating what happens behind this buzz. And now I want you to, now that you've talked about this lady and her daughter, I come to the next question, which is Promise Path program. This is another amazing program that we need to tell Kenyans, we need to tell the world, because we need their help.
Thank you.
Tell me how Prison Path was birthed, and tell me about 129 Club, because of these children that you already started the journey with.
Thank you. Before I go to Promise Path, I just want to give a brief story. The case of the girl we are taking through to school in Nibs is not an isolated case. We used to work with somebody who had served in a committee maximum prison. He had served in prison for almost 20 years as an inmate there. And because of the rapport we had created with him when we were ministering the gospel there, once he was released from prison, he came looking for us where our offices were. At that time they were in Shankada's house. And because of his passion, we found that he would be the most appropriate person to hold the position of a director for evangelism and discipleship. We gave him that position, and he did it for 3 years. Then unfortunately his health was seriously affected by a condition that he suffered, and he passed on. And we sat down again as a board and asked ourselves, this man who was working as our member of staff, he had just gotten married, and they had gotten a beautiful daughter who was just a few months old. So the board decided that let us act differently and see what we could do for the family. So we stood by the widow who was left by the person who was serving with us, and I want to speak on this platform that that young lady who was left a few months old now is a big girl who is doing her primary 6, going on to primary 7, and her vision is to become a medical doctor. And they were in such a helpless and hopeless situation, and the Prison Fellowship Kenya has come to see the value of joining those who are either in prison or those who have left prison immediately, and to be their pillar of support, especially in the area of their children going to school. And this is a good way of introducing Promise Path, because Promise Path, the vision of Promise Path is to ensure that when the breadwinner of any family, when they have gone to prison, life still goes on how it was going on before the person was in prison. And especially where there are single parents, especially single mothers, those children are suffering with a lot of bitterness in various places of our country without anybody knowing the pain they are going through, and nobody touches on the statistics of the children of prisoners, what the pain and the rejection they go through.
And stigma.
And stigma. So this is why this is one of the Promise Path is one of the signature programs that I had said together with the Prisoner's Journey. Prison Fellowship International came up with the signature program for children of those of incarcerated parents. And because of the performance of Prison Fellowship Kenya in the area of the Prisoner's Journey, we were selected to run the program in this country in the year 2023. And we were able to have 250 children recruited. And it was easy, it was not difficult for us to convince the prison administration that those whom we had trained in the Prisoner's Journey to give us their personal details about their families at home for us to put together the children whom we could take through their education in the Promise Path as a program.
Hold that thought. As you have heard this story, this is the reality here in our country, Kenya. Now, he has talked about the Promise Path program, where they are concentrating on taking these children of incarcerated parents to just get not only education, but a wholesome wellness because of the stigma and all these things around. But now what I want you to hear from him is a club called Prison 129 Club, which is directly involved with the education of these children. It is under this program that they were able to take 250 children to school. Hear from him the impact and the reality of what is yet to come. Welcome back.
Thank you, Diana. And I want to mention that, as I said earlier, the biggest challenge for Prison Fellowship Kenya has been fundraising. And even when Prison Fellowship International decided to create signature programs, they were not fully funded. Even the Prisoner's Journey, the national ministry is allocated a portion for them to do fundraising locally. The case of Promise Path is the one that I would say I would say unfortunate, in the sense that Prison Fellowship International was able to fund it only for 1 year, that is 2023. And towards the end of 2023, they told us that because of the global financial crisis,
Yes.
they would not be able to provide any funds for that. And we challenged ourselves again as the staff and the board of Prison Fellowship Kenya, and they said, why can't we see what we can do as Kenyans so that we can be able to mobilize resources. And that's how the idea of Club 129 came about. And the club really is because prison are very isolated, and not many people know about the prisons. And the extent of not knowing, I would like to illustrate it with an experience I had somewhere in Nyahururu. We had gone to Nyahururu prison to attend a graduation for the Prisoner's Journey. We traveled very well, the town is well known, but when we entered there and we tried to ask the residents of Nyahururu town where Nyahururu prison is, I think about 3 of them did not know, could not be able to give us the direction. And one interesting incident is when we were almost a few meters from it, we asked someone to show us where it is, and she actually said she didn't know. But when we looked a bit further on, we were able to see the colors that define every prison entity. So that's the extent of the exclusion that those who are in prison suffers. That you can be in the city or in a particular town and nobody knows what you do. And there is such a disconnect between a prisoner and the community from which he came. And therefore we felt we would also want to operate like a club so that we can we can recruit members, people who are willing to join us so that we can take them through the process of showing them that this is a community that is rejected and stigmatized and looked down upon, but they are fellow human beings, men and women created in the image and the likeness of God, who are in an area of great need and would appreciate whatever assistance the community would be willing to give.
So 129 Club represents the 129 prisons in Kenya.
Yes.
I remember you telling me that. And now I want you to give us a call to action. What will these people who are joining this club, apart from knowing about how it runs, what are these funds going towards? What is the vision beyond the numbers you want to educate this 2024? What are the number of children? And just give us that as your parting shot.
Thank you, Diana. We have done a very thorough budget as a national ministry, and we have come up with the facts and figures. And it has, for us to run the prisoner's journey as a program, because it needs to run side by side. We have found that we would require 18 million to run the prisoner's journey as a program within 1 year, and to take to school 375 children of prisoners, each one of them requiring 48,000 Kenya shillings. And it is not just paying their school fees, it is getting involved with their family lives, getting involved with their mental wellness, and and addressing the needs of the girl child, addressing the needs of the boy child, so that we create a wholesome community. And I would like to those of you who are fathers and mothers, imagine yourself disconnected from your daughter or from your son for a whole year. You don't know where your son is, you don't know where your daughter is, but Prison Fellowship is coming to occupy that space by looking for trained caregivers who are empowered to take care of your child, and we shall be able to take them to school in the schools that they are going, but we shall be monitoring their activities through the reports of their teachers, the reports of their caregivers, and the workers that you shall help us meet their stipends to be able to give us, to make those children to become, to be law-abiding citizens of this country, that we should be able to break the cycle of crime so that they don't follow the patterns of life that their parents could have taken.
Thank you. And before we wind up, Mr. Karimi is writing a book, A Helping Hand, truly a compassionate person through and through. Mr. Karimi, tell us about this book before we wind up.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. a publisher who's been printing the workbooks that we use for prison, for the prisoner's journey. He just asked me, he just looked at me and asked me, why do you do this work? And I was able to tell him a brief story of my journey. And he just told me, that's the story that Kenyans need to read. And I'm ready to write your story. And I have gone through all the interviewing sessions of telling my story. And those of you who would be interested, the story, the book should be out in the month of August, this 2024. And me too, as the hero in the book, I'm looking forward to read my own story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karimi. And let me just say this, let me reiterate this, that this is what we call living behind a legacy. This is his story. What is yours? As you have heard, Sir George's words today were a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the impact of hope, even within the confines of a prison wall. This isn't just a fundraising campaign. It's a chance to be a part of something bigger, to break cycles of despair and offer a glimmer of light. If these stories have moved you, visit pfkenya.co.ke right now, displayed on your screen, and learn how you can contribute and become a catalyst for change. Every action, every donation can be a difference between a closed door and a second chance. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn for inspiring updates and stories of transformation. This is Diana Etsabo. Remember, hope has no walls.